Walks away.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, okay. Enough of that, Joe. Get to the real Joe. Yay! I made it to 100 episodes with help. We also have tonight UFS game creator Ryan Miller, who's apparently a very tall game designer.
I'll turn off my.
Ryan, thank you for joining us on our 100th episode. Long right here. We're very happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
We got questions for you. Of course, guys, as always, we have live Q&A, which I am turning on now.
Yeah, we got to remember to do that, Joe. We always kind of forget.
No, it's always on. It's just I got to switch to it. I think I'm backwards again.
That's fine.
I can read yours.
Let it run, Joe. Let it run.
Look, I have enough letters in my name to where if they say it, I can get sent to the fifth dimension. I don't need to be trapped with Gilbert Godfrey for that long. And there's my Superman joke for the year.
Yeah, that's an animated series joke for the year.
Wouldn't be mind trapped with a wife in the fifth dimension, but God, no, not Gilbert Godfrey. The voice. You can only handle so much Iago.
Right. Let's start off with Ryan Miller. Introduce yourself and why you matter to UFS.
My name's Ryan Miller. I've been in the game design, or I've been in the game industry since about 1998. And I was part of Sabretooth Games. I was one of the original employees of Sabretooth Games and designed the basic mechanics of UFS while I was there.
Nice.
I've also worked at Wizards of the Coast for a long time in R&D. Worked on Magic and Duel Masters in Japan and Kaijudo and a bunch of other games while I was there. And as of late, I left Wizards a couple of years ago and been doing freelance game design and game consulting. So.
Nice.
Just tell us, what was, of all your things, is UFS your favorite thing you've done over the years, or something you like more, or?
Oh, geez. Which of your children do you like most? It's really tough to say. I mean, I enjoyed. There's so much I liked. I've always wanted to do a really good fighting game. I always enjoyed the idea of the conflict being so clear. It's between two combatants, and it translates so well to a trading card game because it's between two combatants and just head-to-head fighting. So when I was at Sabretooth ages ago, I was actually designing a game for. There was an old, I believe it was a Xbox game called Onimusha. You guys remember?
Yay!
PS2.
Remember that?
No, it was on Xbox. It was Onimusha, something else. It had an extra title to it. But
Warlords?
It was
Yeah, something like that.
Onimusha.
Yeah.
There was demons in it, and it was kind of a fighting RPG kind of thing. And my boss at the time, Steve Horvath, who is now one of the VPs over at Fantasy Flight, told me that we could potentially get that license, and we needed a game design for it. So I started kicking around a fighting game, and that's when I came up with kind of the pressure luck nature of UFS. Playing a card and checking for it, playing more, and then you kind of play as many cards as you think you can get away with until your turn ends. And that was the first mechanic I came up with for UFS. And then after that, it kind of came from there. Everything kind of cascaded out of that. I came up with the basic attack mechanic. Of course, when I did it, you had separate block cards. I actually like what Eric and Dave did with adding blocks to every card, because having separate block cards was terrible for the game. So
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Half your deck, you'd only have 10 attacks.
Yeah.
You'd have about 30 blocks, about 20 foundations, and then you'd never have an asset or an action in the game ever.
No, it was terrible. It was a terrible plan. But I mean, the design I came up with was just formative. We just needed something to show the potential licensors, like, here's an idea of a game we would do. And we never got the license or whatever. The negotiations fell through. Or what? I don't even know what happened with Onimusha. But here was this game design, and shortly after that, Games Workshop had bought Sabretooth Games, and wanted to move Sabretooth to Memphis, and I didn't want to leave Seattle. So that's about the time I left Sabretooth, and didn't think about this game system until a year or two later when UFS came out. I saw it on my Board Game Geek profile. I was like, what is this game on my profile? I don't remember working on this at all.
That's the best one. I was like, oh, hey, I made this.
They didn't
Guys,
tell me.
we do have live Q&A up, so if you got a question for Ryan, throw it out when he's done. We'll toss it at him.
So yeah, it was a nice surprise actually, and I felt like they over credited me just a little bit when I saw the game, because I think Eric Yapel and Dave Freeman are the true fathers of the game, and to another extent James Hata. I came up with the basis of it, but those guys are the ones that really took it across the finish line there. So I think they were being very nice. It was just funny that they were being really nice and giving me this awesome credit, but then didn't tell me until after it came out that hey, there's this game, and I'm like, oh, sweet! Like that was a really nice surprise for me. I was working at Wizards by then, and so I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. So,
How long did you work at Wizards for?
off and on about 10 years. I left and came back. Well, I got my job in R&D in 2003 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Worked there for a while. Got laid off, and then worked at Microsoft for a bit. Then came back. So off and on, yeah, good. In R&D, probably a total of 7 years or so. So yeah, that was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I think for me, Wizards is a place that makes Magic and D&D, and they make it really well. I want to make lots of games, and so Wizards eventually wasn't for me. So that's one of the reasons I left. But yeah.
That seems, for a lot of people I've talked to that are former employees of Wizards, they say that after a while. It's like you can only do, like, if you really want to go outside of the spectrum of the company, they're not the company for you. But other companies that are like, they want to spread and like take new ideas on, they're like,
it's a great place, and the creative environment of Wizards is unparalleled in my opinion. But it's interesting you say that, because UFS actually started from a similar impulse on my own. I was working at Sabretooth on the Lord of the Rings tradable miniatures game that we did, and I had been heads down on that thing for like over a year, and that was a really fun project for me, because when I first found out we were getting that license, Steve just comes to me and he says, "Hey, we've got the Lord of the Rings license from Games Workshop. We're going to make a collectible miniatures game based off of it, and we want you to design it, and we're flying you to Nottingham to work with Rick Priestley on the initial designs for it."
Wow.
Now, for those of you who may not know, Rick Priestley is like the grandfather of modern miniatures wargaming. He's the one who designed the original Rogue Trader, which became Warhammer 40,000, the original Warhammer Fantasy, that sort of thing. So that was pretty neat. Like, that was pretty awesome. But after a year of being really heads down and really focused on that game and just working really hard on it, I just was ready for something different. So when Steve just kind of casually mentioned the Onimusha license, he didn't really ask me for a game design. I just started coming up with one just because I just needed to work on something new. And that's kind of where UFS was born, or the basic system at least.
Wow.
Do I like? So I see a question. Do you like where UFS is now? From Brett Blaze. Well, Brett, yes. Asterisk.
You're gonna have to elaborate on that.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Like, UFS, when it was at Sabretooth, they had some really really aggressive tactics for it, and really worked hard on getting all the licenses, and then of course doing Shadow War, which was I know Steve was very excited about, and so when it went away, I was pretty bummed, because there was this core of really great community of players that were just super jazzed about it and wanted it to continue. So when Jason came along and scooped it up, man, I was amazed. In fact, I hadn't heard about that until I was at Gen Con ages ago, and randomly walked by the Jasco booth and saw UFS everywhere. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is happening? And Jason was there, and I walked up to him, and he saw my name and knew who I was, which was a rare thing to happen to me. So I was like, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, I got So I love that Jason was able to pick it up and bring it back to you guys and keep it going for as long as he has. There's some game design stuff that personally I wouldn't have done, but it's certainly not a deal breaker for the game. When I originally designed it, you could only play one foundation per turn.
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
There was
I heard about that at one point.
In the original demo decks, the Chun-Li or Taki demo decks, there was a batch of them. The first batch that got sent out actually had that as as like a thing in the design point of like you can only play up to one foundation a turn, and that was in like the beta demo decks. And then when the second set of those demo decks came out, they removed that. I'm like, this is weird. I can only play one a turn. The game went so slow.
And I don't want to second guess. I didn't play it as much as so I'm not sure why they did it. I just know that I think one of the unintended side effects, at least in my opinion, was that people had to fill their decks with foundations. There's so many foundations in your deck, and those kind of take space from like the moves, which to me were like the meat of the game, is punching your opponent in the face, right? So whether or not it's been bad for gameplay, I can't honestly say. I know when I played it with just one foundation a turn, we were able to cost the cards differently and accordingly. Right, so to help kind of speed the game up, as when you can play as many as you draw, it tends to be a bit swingy at the beginning of the game, or a bit more random, because whoever drew more has an advantage, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, and I think the other thing about Foundation was the choice to kind of have each one of them have lots of text on them, as opposed to maybe just having a few foundations that just are basic lands, for lack of a better term. Because I feel like acquisition for new players is a very, very important thing for any game, and it's especially important for a collectible game. And I felt like that many cards with that much text on the table that quickly could be a potentially harmful thing. Of course, this is like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So times
it definitely I think is sometimes an issue. Sometimes, we have a Jason Hrotsky about to join.
He's trying.
Like, the amount of text, I think, is definitely an issue sometimes. I've encountered it with new players, but like if it's a new person who doesn't play card games at all, usually, they just want to get in because of X license, it's a little bit of a work. But if it's someone who plays card games, usually it just takes them a little bit to get used to it.
Well, we haven't had something that wordy since, God, what was it, Meat Eater? From,
that was that was in the Meat Eater from the first run of KOF sets. Yeah, that was a fun card.
Like, put a card here. All right, well, you put a card there, now put a card here.
No, that was Billiard Player. Billiard Player was the move everything around. Yeah.
Well, to be clear, gentlemen, this was 15 years ago when TCG Tech was at a different space, right?
Yeah.
And I think what James and those guys did very well, and Jason continues to do well with his company, is to make sure this is a meaty game for people who want to really sink their teeth into an awesome trading card game experience. They don't need the light kind of, and I think there's definitely room for that, and I think it shows because the game is still selling, still doing well, and still has tons of players. So
it dropped me for a moment. I should be back.
Okay, I was going to say, Matt, how are there two of you?
It crashed. That's what happened.
Okay. And Jason said he's trying to make things workingly.
Yeah.
Workingly.
If he's at the Jassel, just ask Shane for help.
Next question. I'm not really sure I get one of the questions. What happened to the missing characters?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that myself.
Oh, it's not something he's not gonna know.
Guys, I'm just gonna make sure people are aware. I like Ryan. His involvement, definitely in the game, was directly at helping base design of the system itself.
Yeah, he's core design.
We actually have I'm actually going to reach out to Dave Friedman for a future episode. He'll be a guy we can ask a lot of questions about this, about like when the game got into license designing and stuff like that. I'm working to get something set up with him.
Okay, now, Ryan, I actually do have a question. Were you in charge of the symbol system as well?
No. So the basic color system of the game, No, that was after my involvement. My plan for that, my original design just told your avatar told you what colors you could include, and that was that. There was no chaining. There was no like every card has 3 colors kind of thing. How does that? I when I first saw it, I was a bit perplexed because it seemed a little complex to me. But how does it strike the community?
I think it works out pretty well. It's made it a couple of times over the years. Like Magic, with just their 5 colors, every once in a while some abilities are a little bit fuzzy on what belongs where.
Sure.
But with 12 symbols, it gets a little bit more like, all right, we have this one ability that kind of is good in like 3 or 4 different symbols.
And then we have
just,
the odd years where one symbol is dominant throughout like 2 blocks.
Yeah, well, like there's one symbol that did everything for a while on X.
You mean evil?
Evil, yeah. Like they're doing better now with defining it now, where
Sure.
the whole idea is like, here's this one type of effect like damage reduction or whatnot, and there will be the one symbol that's really good at it, and 2 off symbols are kind of good at it. And they're finally starting to define it, and it's getting a little bit better.
It seems like that might make deck building kind of a pain. Like I remember when after it came out and Steve was nice enough to give me a bunch of product and I started busting packs, and it like getting into it was tough for me because I picked the character that I liked, and I was trying to figure out what cards to put in, but then I'm like, well, I could put this card in if I chain it up with this card, and I think I eventually just went with I'm just going to use cards that all have the symbols, so I don't ever have to worry about chaining.
That's usually what most of the time people do. Sometimes there's been splashes. Sometimes there's characters that allow for it. Like there's a guy that just cycled out one of the champ cards that allows him to put something directly into play during when someone else plays something.
That's one thing I learned. I learned kind of the hard way when I worked on. So Luke Peterson and I designed the Warhammer 40,000 collectible card game. That was Sabretooth's first offering, and it was a fun game and still one of my favorite designs. But building decks for that game was a chore, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Didn't that game have dice rolling?
Well, it had dice on the cards. So
dice on the cards. That was it.
Yeah, and then each card had an upside-down function that you could, like, so during battle you would draw cards and just use the upside-down bottom part, which was pretty neat, but it made deck building really hard because every card was 2 cards, right? Like, every card was like, so what I found in that game was, I mean, people like to build a deck that does a thing. Like, somebody wants to build their Space Marine deck that uses Assault a lot or something like that, and that game was really hard to do, and so when I saw the system that the guys came up with for colors for UFS, I was like, oh, okay, like, I mean, it seemed complex to me, but I wondered how hard it was to, like, okay, I want to build a, I don't know, high kick deck or something like that, and how hard was that to do? Because that's part of the, I mean, a large part of the fun of a trading card game experience is building decks and thinking about combinations and all that stuff. And the harder it is to do those things, the harder it is to play, harder it is to get into a game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we got another question. Blurred Visionary also wants to know, what is your take on some of the new keyword abilities that have come out over the years?
There's so many. You gotta narrow it down for me. Have there been some contentious ones?
I got one. Desperation. Have you seen that one?
No, which one's that?
It's a static ability that says when you are below half their abilities, you can only do then. Like if there's, or it'll lower the difficulty on a card.
Sure.
So like you can have an attack that's normally like 7 difficulty, only become 4 difficulty when you're half dead.
Yeah, so I know, like, in Magic we have the 3 player types, right? We have Johnny, Spike, and Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Timmy likes big effects and big things happening, like big creatures, and Spike just wants to win regardless, doesn't care how he does it, he just wants to win. And Johnny wants to win in a really interesting way, or really combo-y, or really, and that ability sounds very Johnny to me, because what I would want to do with that ability is make a deck that damages myself, or like cards that would normally be a drawback because I'm damaging myself, would now be this kind of upside. Having said that, I know I try to avoid, when I'm working on a game, I try to avoid losing mechanics. Like when I'm building a deck, a lot of times, especially newer players, when they see a card, they're like, "Oh, this card's good if I'm losing." Well, I'm not going to lose, right? Or I'm, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't like it like that either.
Psychologically, it's just kind of interesting that it's hard to sell a mechanic based off of losing psychologically because people don't like to think about losing, right? They want to think, what is my strategy to win, not what is my strategy to come back from a bad position or come back from a near loss, right? So yeah, I can see that mechanic rubbing people a little the wrong way. And plus, like, if I'm winning and I'm beating you and you just whip out with this crazy, like, cheap card because I beat you, I can see that going, wow, wish I hadn't attacked just now, or, something like that. But
yeah, that's definitely happens sometimes.
Certainly a dramatic ability, but not one that sounds super fun, I guess I would say.
One that you might like, Combo.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that one?
Is that the one that makes stuff cheaper? What is the Combo?
Oh, no. Combo is, it's like, it'll be like an enhanced ability that you can do, that only if you have a specific requirement in front of it. Like, let's say, like, Combo Punch. So if you have a punch as your first attack before it, you can play that.
Yeah, that was a part of my original design. Originally, what is it? I think originally I designed Combo as it cost less if you had played a thing. So like it would say like kick combo 3, and that just meant if you had played a kick already, this costs 3 less. And I think we ended up taking it out just because it was a lot of math, a lot of hanging, So I think the much simpler one is what ended up in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But definitely in any fighting game, you have to kind of have that nod to combos and like I think that's a lot of fun. Yeah, and kind of like my original design for the game was that too. Like the idea of playing as many moves as you thought you could is also kind of an homage to the combo because it's like how many moves can I get out there before I mess up and you take over the turn, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, so originally too. Speaking of attacks, so in my original design, you played your attacks out, and then on your opponent's next turn, they tried to block them. And one of the things that I think Steve added in when he was working with Eric and Dave was the blocking off turn, right? I block right away using cards in my hand. I actually repurposed that mechanic in a game that Luke and I did just recently on Kickstarter called Epic PvP, where you play your attacks on your turn, and then on your opponent's turn, they try to block them with their own.
Oh, I can hear this way then.
Yay!
Oh, Jason's here. Hey, Jason.
How's it going?
Hey,
finally got it working.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us,
I got
Jason.
it working now.
Hey.
Is it really loud here?
What?
Yeah, is it really loud here? Can you guys hear me? Hold on, I might.
No, yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, you're fine, man. I can just hear some guys in the background. Sounds like Kohler back there making some noise.
We have the game shop here is fully active behind us, so
yeah,
there's
cool.
probably like 20 people playing games.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Playing UFS?
Some of them.
Ooh.
The answer should be all of them.
Yeah.
Actually, so one of my favorite UFS memories actually was very early on. I was in Paris I was working at Wizards at the time, and I was in Paris to meet with some game distributors, some European game distributors. And so we'd gone to this game store in Paris, and these two French kids, were playing UFS at this store. And I was just so tickled to see people playing a game that I'd worked on that I went up to them and I said, hey, I worked on that game. And either they didn't speak English or they didn't care very much because they just kind of looked up at me and just went, and then went back to their game.
It's pretty good.
So that was pretty funny, I thought. I was like, oh, hey, I worked on that. And they're like,
So, question for you, that's one of my favorite things to talk about. What's your favorite license that UFS has gotten or has just recently gotten?
Oh, Mortal Kombat, easily.
Oh, yeah.
Mortal
Were
Kombat.
you one of the ones that originally wanted it? Way back when?
I was gone by the time they started scooping up
Yeah.
licenses, and so, I mean, it was beyond expectations. When I saw what they had gotten with Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and all that stuff, and later on with, like, Darkstalkers and King of Fighters, I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. Like, oh my God. I mean, I used to be a brand manager at Wizards of the Coast a long time ago, and so I got kind of a behind the scenes on licensing. And licensing is no mean feat, as Jason will tell you. Like, it's a pain to get lots of licenses, and it's even harder to get a license for a game that exists already, because a lot of licensors want a special game for their special little snowflake. They don't want to hear about being a part of a game that already exists, right? So the fact that Sabretooth did that, and then Jason continues to be able to do that, I find very impressive. Just because, but yeah, I was never a big Mortal Kombat player, but somehow the story and the characters got into my brain, because when the Mortal Kombat movie came out in like '98, no, it was 95. I remember taking the girl I was dating at the time. I took her to see it. So first class, ladies. I took her to see it. And she kept asking me about the characters, and I knew about every single one. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Shang Tsung. He's this demon. Oh, that's Raiden. He's the god of thunder. And I'm like, how do I know this stuff? I barely play the game. So it was super impressive to me that they had managed to get that much out there without me even playing much of the game. I played a bit of it, but not much. So that one was definitely the one that I was like, oh, man, if they can get Mortal Kombat, that would be amazing. So, yeah.
All right. So I got to ask the burning question. Who do you want in the set?
Who do I want in the Mortal Kombat set?
Yeah, who do you want out of the first? What character in Mortal Kombat X do you want to see the most in the first UFS Mortal Kombat?
So the first fighting game I designed, I was like 16. No, that's not right. Because it was after Magic came out. And I'm like, I'm gonna make a trading card game, and this is before I had worked. So this is probably '94. I came up with a fighting card game. And I played with my little brother Nathan, and it was terrible. It was a terrible game. It was boring. Like, it was impossible to land a hit. It was just stupid. But my character was this big four-armed guy. So I thought it'd be really cool to have this four-armed guy, because I really like Goro, right? And I thought it'd be, and I had this mechanic where you could hold weapons. Like, so I'm like, here I got this guy with like 4 swords, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So clearly Goro would be right up there. Although I've always liked Shang Tsung just because he's this creepy, shape-shifting demon guy. The good guys in Mortal Kombat just kind of bore me a little bit. The bad guys are just way more interesting to me.
I love the bad guys.
You what, Jason?
I said I love the bad guys in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Here's the problem now. Half the cast is like morally gray. There's no outright bad guy anymore.
Yeah, it's the Dark Knight effect. Ever since Dark Knight came out, we all have to be kind of film noir, like, living in the anti-hero kind of thing. I think people find that more interesting. And you saw it in WWE as well, right? You see like a lot of wrestlers kind of take on that. Instead of the good guy and the bad guy, it's just like, no, we're all kind of anti-heroes now. So.
Jesse, you're muted.
Or maybe he's trying to make us think he is.
I don't know.
Or maybe he's on a different hangout.
He's talking, but we can't hear him. All right, so Jason, you have taken my set 1 Mortal Kombat under advisement, right? Mortal Kombat X, Just the Ninjas.
Just the Ninjas. I do like the ninjas.
You save so much money on art, right? Because you just got to just change the color of their tunics or whatever, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, the new artwork, they separated them pretty good. Like Reptile actually has a reptile face.
Oh, I know. I'm being glib. They've definitely.
No, if it was Mortal Kombat 1, 2, or 3, there's literally no difference between their costumes.
No, they're just. So I suspect they did that for the same reason, to save money on art.
Makes it easy, because they had to pay the actors in those ones to film all the moves.
Yeah.
It was motion capture. That's why it looks so good for a 2D.
It was actually rotoscope, which is different than motion capture.
Yeah.
It's an old. Yeah, it's funky, man. But yeah, I remember that coming up. So they asked the question earlier, Jason, before you got on, asking about what happened to some of the missing characters, and none of us knew what that meant.
I think they mean the missing promo.
Oh, JJ?
No.
I think they're the
missing Gen Con promo potentially.
Well, we'll talk over that. We'll talk about that later. I think they want. We have no clue. We just know destructions occurred of cards.
Yeah, and we may not even be able to say anything on that. So.
Oh, you know what? They buried it. They buried him in a landfill in New Mexico.
right next to ET. Perfect.
I was going to say right next to our ET license.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of licenses that I'm excited about, though, I was really impressed that Jason got the Mega Man license. I think that's a super cool addition to the genre, and I was also surprised that no one had snatched it up because it's such a beloved license.
Well, here's the thing. Mega Man right now is really, really weird. Like, everybody in the world clamors for it, but when you put it out there and give it to them, nobody takes it. And then all they do is they sit there and complain.
Wait, gamers are complaining about something?
Oh, yeah, that's such an odd and foreign concept.
I love gamers. I wouldn't be in this job if I didn't love gamers, but they can complain from time to time.
Now, I don't know if Capcom's watching this or not. Jason, are we free of Capcom interference? I'm not going to get anything taken away by saying this, right?
You're never free of Capcom interference.
Capcom is everywhere.
God. All right, I'm just going to say it. I'll suffer the repercussions later.
Okay.
Capcom's been really butthurt because of Kenji Inafune leaving, and they are going out of their way to make sure that the Blue Bomber doesn't exist, except for certain forms of media. So that's why.
It's more of they're trying to do everything with it without his help. That's what it more seems like. They're getting the classic game on Steam. Like they're still presenting the game. Like Steve's gonna get a bunch of the titles really soon. They're definitely supporting the board game. I mean, they had Jason at Comic-Con. Like they definitely want to do stuff with it. It's just like I think they were about a year ago or two. I probably were we don't want to do a thing with it because he left. And now they're like, hey, you maybe want to do something with it. It's good to see it. And I'm happy I'm playing something that has it.
It's hard to speculate about business decisions when you're outside of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that we just don't know. I would say that coming from the business side of it, if you have a lucrative license, I don't think there's anybody in that company that doesn't want to use that license, right? Like, I don't think there's anybody that says, we've got this lucrative license, but we don't want to do anything with it. I think the answer is probably something that we don't know because we're not inside the business, right? So that would be my speculation on it.
Yeah.
Jason?
What's that?
I said, you got anything?
I know that Capcom hired a lot of people to rework all of the classic 1 through 6 Mega Man games. They went frame by frame and fixed everything so that even the glitches are the same as the originals, but they reworked the whole game. So it's crisper. You don't have the jumping around on your screen and everything anymore. So if you play them, it's crisp and clean.
They took a lot of especially the original Mega Man on the Steam update version. They took some people who were testing it said they took the Yellow Devil glitch out. So you actually have to beat Yellow Devil on the hardest way possible. You can't just pause kill him anymore. It's no, it's the only way.
It is the only way.
It really is.
I had no idea that was a glitch. I thought that was just a clever way you had to fight that boss, right? I just thought it was the designers being...
I only learned it because of speed runs. That's the only reason I learned that was possible. That's how you beat him? Okay. Hey, it works. It's a lot easier now.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Matt, you were going to ask something, I think?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because I always love talking about licenses, what's Jason's new favorite license of the ones he's acquired?
For UFS or in general?
For UFS. I know in general, DBZ is the answer.
Yeah, I love Dragon Ball Z, but I think my favorite license is Mortal Kombat, just because I grew up with that game. I have the arcade machine in my house.
All right.
It's pretty good. Big fan. I love Street Fighter as well, though. I watched all of the Evo finals for all of these things, and it was a blast. But Mortal Kombat, I'm really behind. I love the characters and the story.
It's pretty impressive.
It has a story compared to Street Fighter.
Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter predates Mortal Kombat quite a bit, if I recall.
Yeah.
But Mortal Kombat did something. It just propelled the fighter genre into pop culture in a way that Street Fighter hadn't quite done yet, and I think that's why it just kind of sticks. I think a lot of it was the rotoscope characters. I remember back then, no one had seen something like that really, and it was really cool. And also just the level of violence, just the the finishing moves and things like that. So to me,
Even though they were really simple, they looked really cool for 1992, 93.
Yeah, it really did.
I grew up in a bowling center, so like my grandfather owned a bowling center for a long time, so I played in these arcade bowling centers all the time. So like when that game came out, I was like, "What's this?" And it's just like they're almost human. I'm telling them to kill each other. This is interesting.
Well, the other thing we got to remember that Mortal Kombat did for the fighting game, especially for the fighting game genre, is they made revolutionized it by giving a very clear and very well detailed narrative for a fighting game. We have not seen that forever. I mean, for God's sakes, do you remember when Chun-Li was like Ryu's lover way back in the day?
That was Street Fighter 1.
That was
Street Fighter 1, you could only play 2 characters, if I remember correctly.
in Ryu. But like way back in the day, like Ryu was the lover of Chun-Li and Ken was the bitter rival. There was no Akuma. And now we have like these Mortal Kombat has just single-handedly made one of the best story mode games ever.
Yeah.
Blaze Blue.
Mortal Kombat 9 and Mortal Kombat X have had great stories.
Yes.
Okay, Matt, I will agree with you there. Blaze Blue had a really good story for what it was. I hated Blaze Blue as a fighting game, but it was a really good story. I
really appreciate what Mortal Kombat did is they even cleaned up their own mess. In the opening,
That's true.
That is true.
In the opening at 9, it's like, all right, we've gone way too far with this. We're rebooting the entire universe. Go. Now, Blurred Visionary asked Jason, do you ever think we'll get a WWE as a license?
This is something that some people have been asking a lot.
Joe, I can actually answer that for you. Not at this time. Because of a recent acquisition of another company, to my knowledge.
Let me put it to you this way. I personally don't want it because I don't want to see a meta of nothing but throws. Like, having a meta of nothing but ranged is fine. We can rework that keyword to where it just says, oh, he's shooting a gun. It means nothing.
But then we could have the, are you ready for the UFS Saturday Night Super?
I swear to God, Matt, I will boot you from this call.
What are you talking about? That's gonna be an action at some point. Somebody's gonna win extended one year, and that's gonna be their action. Like, are you ready?
Super Slam.
A keyword for pro wrestling moves, and they don't do as much damage as they look like they should.
Yeah, keyword is called KFAB.
I mean, they still do damage, but not nearly as much as they should based on the art or the move itself, right?
No.
There you go.
That's a good description.
Oh, Lord. All right, what else do we got, guys?
I've got a big question for him that I've been holding on for a few bits.
All right, go for it.
Do you have any ideas for someone who wants to become a designer? Or break into that part of the gaming industry?
Sure. I mean, it's it's a competitive. Well, first I'd say if you have an inkling you want to do it, go for it. It is an amazing industry, full of really great people, and a great community of gamers. I mean, gamers are awesome. We all have our foibles, but as a group, I love gamers. They're my the family that I opted into, right? And so I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. As a game designer, it's a very competitive area to get into if it's something you want to make a living at. What I would say is I can tell you what I did and kind of, so I got out of the Army in 1998 and moved to Seattle just to see if I could get a job at Wizards of the Coast. I've been playing Magic since it came out and had been designing games since I was like 11 years old and wanted to see if I could make it as a game designer, and Wizards was the one to go to. They were the big company. And I started, basically got the lowest, I got any job I could get with Wizards of the Coast. And my first job at Wizards was answering the phone. No, I'm kidding. My first job at Wizards was as a judge, a Magic judge at the old tournament center that they used to have in Seattle up in the U District there. So for $6 an hour, I judged Magic tournaments every night for 5 nights a week. But my goal all along was to get to corporate, and so I talked to as many people as I could. I talked to them about, and got connections, and really it's just about that. It's about networking, and it's about getting your face out there and like getting known. I think a good way to go is a lot of companies need playtesters for games, and I think that's also a strong entry point, because you can start showing them not only that you're good to work with, but that you have good insights into game design and that sort of thing. Kickstarter, though, is also an amazing resource for new game designers, just because if you can figure out like what you need to make your game and how much you need to make it, Kickstarter has allowed a lot of people to do it. So there's a lot of ways to get into it. Just I think designing games and designing lots of games is a good start, definitely.
Okay. So I'm out of my base questions finally. So, do you have any questions for Jason? He's been sitting there quietly this entire time.
Please ask, and I don't know, Jason, maybe you can interpret this. Is the MK license limited only to Mortal Kombat 10?
No, it's the entire universe of Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
Nice. Ooh,
It does.
Cowboy Bebop.
Hold on. So for Mortal Kombat, each set has to be the entirety of one property. So if it's Mortal Kombat 10, it would be all the characters and art style of Mortal Kombat 10. If we wanted to do like a Mortal Kombat 3 set, it would have to be called Mortal Kombat 3 and have all the art styles of Mortal Kombat 3, etc., etc.
Okay.
Nice.
Here's a question for the Cowboy Bebop license. You have access to the movie.
I do not. It's just the episodes.
Okay.
That's cool.
And that's something people have asked me a bunch about.
Dude, I'll take it though. That's an awesome show. I love Cowboy Bebop. It's awesome.
We got a question for Ryan again from Blurred Visionary. Wow, Rio has just come with a list.
Your original idea.
What were the original ideas for control checks? As it seems a lot more tame as UFS has gone on.
I'm not sure what tame means. I guess like
I think we had more 2s and 1s originally as the game.
No. He's talking about control.
Oh,
like
that control.
Control decks.
Oh, control decks. Well, So I mean, control as a deck archetype, I think exists in just about every trading card game on some level, right? Control is at its core just stopping your opponent from doing what they set out to do, stopping them from playing their part of the game. And control sits in a really weird space in any trading card game. You need some of it. You need some control to actually be viable. Obviously, like you can't do a creature-based game if you don't have cards that kill this crazy, So you need a way for the game's board state to change from turn to turn, because the strategy of a trading card game is looking at the table and making decisions based on what you see in the table and what you have in your hand and what kind of resources you have available to you, right? So without control, a lot of that stuff breaks down. But too much control makes for a really crappy game experience, right? Because at its core, control is about stopping you from playing, right?
Yep.
So while I can't second guess, recent design choices on recent sets, because I haven't been involved in those, I can say that when we first designed UFS, we designed a control deck just to see what does control mean for this game, and how bad is it, right? Like how bad can control get? So, to your question of like what were the original ideas, it was really just to kind of explore the design space around control, and UFS, as I mentioned before, and I don't know, Blurred Visionary, if you were on when we were talking about this, originally blocks were not a part of other cards. Blocks were their own card. So essentially, blocks were control, right? Because they were counterspells. They were just these cards that did nothing other than get rid of attacks that were coming at you. And that made the game pretty miserable. Like, it was way too much control, right? It was like, and how do you balance that, right? Like, well, too little blocks and you die, right? And it becomes this race to death, right? Which can't be very fun all the time. And that's why I was really pleased to see what Dave and Eric came up with by putting those blocks on cards. That to me was a natural solution. I was like, oh my god! When I saw that, I was like, well, that's brilliant. What a great way to handle that. So I would guess that control has gotten tamer because control just makes for such a crappy experience And what you really want for your game, in my opinion, is to understand what your game is about and make sure it's never not about that. I think Magic did this very well about 10 years ago when they saw these funky decks that were like creatureless stasis decks and all this weird crap, opalescence and all this crazy crap going on. And they made it, okay, well, what is our game about? And the answer was awesome creatures and battles, right? And they said, okay, you know, my favorite example of this is the old Deadlands trading card game, which came back. Doomtown came back. When Doomtown was out before, Doomtown was this amazing game, and if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. It's basically this kind of horror/Wild West game where you're doing shootouts, and the shootouts are all resolved with poker hands. Every single card has a value and a suit. And so you're building up these poker hands. It's super fun. And I played it back in 98, 99. I played it a ton until they came out with a deck that didn't give a crap about poker hands. They didn't give a crap about any of that stuff. And it was the most demoralizing and offensive choice. I remember just being offended by this choice. I've got this awesome deck, right? And and you took all the fun out of it. And so with UFS and this long journey I've just taken you all on, the point with UFS is, what is UFS about? UFS is about awesome fighting, right? That's what it's about. And so I would imagine, and I can't speak for the design team, but I would imagine that Control has gotten tamer because they want to focus on what's awesome about UFS, which is bashing your opponent in the face as much as possible.
And I'll say that probably that's where the game is right now. We're definitely back to the control's there, but it's still like you gotta fight. Like I think our World Finals this year was like a very hyper aggressive deck against like a mid range deck. That's the best way you could describe it. Like mid range, not really control, but like a deck that was designed for the format. And that's where you want to see the game. You want to see these aggro decks get in there just as much.
I think the best use for control is to keep combo in check, right? Like that's the best use for control. You want combo decks are really important. But what you don't want is they become solitaire machines, right? Where I'm just like, I don't care what you're doing. As soon as my combo goes off, I win, right? And control adds that question mark to those combo decks, right? So I think that's the best use of it. What you don't want is a control deck that just dominates everything, because that is just the worst game to play, right? I mean, it's just
We've played through that format a few times. It's not fun.
Now, Jason actually has a question for Ryan.
What is your favorite board game?
What is my favorite board game? Oh gosh, you know, I over the past few years I've been working on some and play other games, right? And I tend to like immersion over strategy. For me, I enjoy games that make me feel like I'm kind of in the world of the game, you know, that sort of thing. So I have to say to that end that I've really enjoyed Red Dragon Inn quite a bit. I thought that game was a pretty clever immersive game that still had some fun strategy to it. And for those of you who don't know about Red Dragon Inn, it's this game where you're all adventurers, but it's after the adventure, and you're getting drunk at an inn.
Oh, is that the one with the geishas?
No.
There's a ton of expansions.
There's a lot of games that have come out since it that have imitated the idea, but Red Dragon Inn's kind of like the base of that that idea.
Okay, I thought he was talking about the AEG L5R spin-off Geisha House.
That's the spin-off of this game.
Yeah. No, I was talking about the original game. I thought it was clever that there's still some decent strategy to it. It's still a lot of fun. And then what I really enjoyed was that each character deck is so different. And that's really tough to do, right? But each character really felt different and made me play differently. So I've really enjoyed that one. Gosh, I'm trying to think of the game. A lot of times when I play a game, it's before it comes out, and it's a designer buddy of mine, so it's hard for me to remember.
Say Mega Man, the board game.
What's that? Oh, Mega Man. Oh, yeah, Mega Man. So I helped Jason with the rulebook for that one, and yeah, I've enjoyed that one quite a bit. I was out at the Jassel a few months ago playing that with the guys, like in pre-release form.
Beta phase, yeah.
Beta phase. I got to say, one of the things I'm excited. Well, I finally saw the pieces at Gen Con. Well, I saw the sculpts before, but I saw the whole thing at Gen Con, and that damn game just pops off the table at you. I mean, it really does look great. And I enjoyed how the stages worked. I always thought that was a neat mechanic for the original game, right? You know, you decide which boss you want to go after based on the powers you want to collect. And I thought it was fun how that got carried over to the board game.
I really regret not having the time to play that at Gen Con.
Yeah, me too.
We were distracted. Hopefully soon, Matt. Hopefully soon.
I was too busy playing Top Gun.
Will says
Nice.
Top Gun was good.
Yeah, dude, I got the.
Top
got
Gun
my
was the
cards.
best part of that event.
Eh,
I got my cards right here. Top Gun, what's up?
Mine's somewhere.
Yeah, I've been. That was a lot of fun. I was excited to get to work on that with Jason and the guys. We had a pretty good time coming up with that one.
You should tell them how that all came about.
Oh my God. Yeah, you know that the original game design for Top Gun, and Top Gun, for those of you who may not know, is a kind of a party game obviously based on Top Gun. Jason had emailed me a long time ago and said, "Hey, I'm talking to Paramount about some other stuff, but they're saying I might be able to get the Top Gun license, and do you think we could do anything with that?" And of course, I'm a minis wargamer. I love miniatures wargaming. So my first thought was, "Oh yeah, a really cool dogfighting game." And then, of course, immediately I'm like, "Stop it! Just stop what you're doing. That's terrible." Dogfighting is like the last thing you want to do with a Top Gun game, right? It's just, it's, you know, it's not.
Isn't that the response of every single video game designer that's ever used Top Gun? What is this? A dogfighting game? Like, no.
No, like what, you know, and I was out in Vegas meeting with Jason and the gang, and we were talking about Dead Meat and some other stuff, and he brought it up again, and because at first I was kind of like, yeah, I'm not sure that there is a game that we'd want to do. I'm not quite sure. It's a great license. There's so much awareness for the license. So we're at the office one afternoon, and he brings it back up, and I kind of said, well, you know, the game has to just embrace the 80s badass ridiculousness of that movie, right? Because in my opinion, it's one of the most, if not the most quotable movies of all time. And it's also, in my opinion, the best bad movie of all time. I mean, it is. If you analyze the down, but don't do that because it's an awesome, epic movie. Like, it's just a great film. I've watched it hundreds of times, right? I love that movie. But if you look at the story or if you try to break down the characters, just, no, stop it. Just stop, right? Just enjoy it for what it is, which is this badass, awesome film, right? So I started thinking about it and said, well, what if the game was all about the quotes from the movie? And so that's when, you know, the game started really to take form. And about 45 minutes later, I had designed a game and started printing out the first prototype of it. And I came up with this goofy game where you're playing quotes from the movie, and they're all kind of numbered, and you're trying to have the highest quote out there. But you can use insults to get rid of your opponent's quotes. And so every card in the game is a quote from the movie. So if you don't like somebody's quote, you can say, I don't like you because you're dangerous, right? Whose butt did you kiss to get in here? Son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash, right? I mean, just these ridiculous, awesome quotes from the movie.
Remember, boys, no points for second place.
Yes. And then we added things like there's high-fiving in the game, like certain cards require you to high-five other players. There's one card that makes you flip the bird to another player. They're just really fun stuff like that just really embraces, because I believe like a game based on any kind of beloved franchise or beloved license should be a love letter to that license, right? Like, I don't think your job is to recreate the story. You should just show that you love it through the game. And I think people will connect with that because they love it too, right? And that's what I wanted to do for Top Gun, was make this game that obviously whoever made this game loves Top Gun. And that bleeds through the cards, right? Because Top Gun is one of those movies my dad and I watch together. Or, whenever we're in the same town, we'll probably queue up Top Gun because he's an old aviator guy. And that was one of my early memories of watching a movie with my dad was Top Gun. So, so I'm really excited for Top Gun. I think it's one of those games that you're just going to pop in your backpack, and when you're with your buddies, you can say, hey, you can break it out, play a few hops, and have a really good time.
Yep,
I'll tell you one, first night, pardon my long stories here, but that first night, I knew we had something on our hands because we started playing at the Joppas. We went to a restaurant and played it at the restaurant, and then we went back to the Jassel and played it there while playing Top Gun on the big screen next to us. And we made this awesome drinking game where whenever a line from the that we in the movie, we all had to drink. and it was that was a lot of fun. So I knew we were on something when the Jasco crew wanted to play it all night. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
All right. How much longer do we want to keep going? So, because we either have 5 minutes or 25 minutes.
A few more minutes.
Top Gun, amazing. Thank you, Super Aragon Brothers. Oh, I love that name, by the way.
That's Fernando and Edwin. They are the newest UFS vlog show.
Yep.
Hopefully, we really do hope that you two get to 100 episodes in the future as well.
Yeah. What's up? Super Aragorn, what's up? We should do Top Gun. We should do Top Gun for UFS, and it's all volleyball moves. Right?
Shirtless.
Just like a section of all the cards. It's literally screenshots of. I don't know if Tom Cruise has always hated that. Like, he always said something about that scene whenever he gets asked about it in interviews. Is like, I don't really like to talk about it because he felt so uncomfortable with his shirt off.
Well, it was just gratuitous, right? And
yeah.
and Ridley Scott actually says that. If you watch, by the way, get the special edition DVD. It has the behind the scenes stuff in that DVD is amazing. It's really well done. But he flat out says, he's like, look, I've got all this beefcake in my movie. I can't not have this scene where they're all shirtless and playing, at some point, right? So yeah, that'd be pretty funny. Playing Maverick and you gotta like spike the ball at your opponent, and Chun-Li's like dazzled by the pecs or something. Pretty epic, man.
That sounds like a fun promo for you, Jason. The dazzling volleyball game.
Oh, dazzled by the peck.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you kind of got that with the presidential barbecue promo. You kind of got that going in the background. You
I
just
thought
threw him
that
into
was
it.
the homage.
It wasn't. He didn't even realize it.
I wanted to put a shirtless volleyball game in the Top Gun game. I had this idea for like you play this card and the last person to take their shirt off loses, right?
Please don't. We don't need that in UFS, please.
Oh,
God.
it'd be fun in the
The amount
Top
of
Gun game.
optometrists that would go get so much money from blindness.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Probably. I mean, yeah, I would definitely do that. I'm Irish, so I'm definitely nearly albino. So. And part German too. So yeah, I got nothing, man. I'm sunburned like that.
Well, I mean, Gondor's got to figure out that their aid is needed somehow.
Wow.
Nice.
All right. We got any other questions for our two guests?
If anybody's got anything else, we'll turn it over to Jason. Put him on the spot since he's the president.
Yeah, Jason, is there anything you want to say to us with our special 100th episode?
Guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in Texas now. How about that?
You're back in Texas at the moment?
Yep.
Anything special and new coming up that you haven't talked to us about yet?
Let's see. Probably.
Probably. I had to try.
We have behind me. There's like 4 games that we're playtesting to see if we want to purchase them off of designers.
Ooh, okay.
Nice.
Nice. You're talking to other game designers? How dare you?
I know. they talk to me to be fair.
I'll
They talk-
take it.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
They pitch games to us, and then we bring them here, and then we play them, and then if they're fun, we're like, well, we should probably make this game.
Actually, I do got a question. I don't know if this is something you can answer or not, but Level 99 Games is going online soon. Are we going to be seeing some Red Horizon characters in the online version?
I don't know if they're going to be on BattleCon, but I do know that we are partnering with Level 99 on BattleCon Exceed. So that's going to be like an updated version of BattleCon that's playing more like, I guess, like Third Strike for Street Fighter.
Ooh.
Okay.
All of the Red Horizon characters and playing them into BattleCon. It's called Exceed.
I got a question for you, and this is actually, I'll go with NJ Brock on this. Do we have a timeline on a State of the Game from post-Gen Con yet?
The State of the Game's written, and Shane has it right now. I don't remember what we're waiting. Oh, yeah. We just need the dates for Las Vegas Worlds. And
wait, so you're confirming that Vegas is now going to be Worlds?
it is, yes.
There we go. We have it
Okay, so
confirmed.
I'm confused. It's officially Worlds 2016.
16. It's gonna get starting.
We're having early Worlds and a late Nationals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll be at
that. We're flipping them because the attendance at Las Vegas is passing the Gen Con attendance for the tournaments. So we're just going to switch the events and Worlds. It's also easier to get to if you're international. Las Vegas is a much easier destination to go to.
Yeah, ask the UK players. The UK players told me about their travel to Indianapolis, and it sounded painful. They had to fly through 3 airports in the States, to then take a bus from Chicago to Indianapolis. And I'm like, oh. And they had to do the same thing going back. I'm like, I could definitely agree. It's like, yeah, Vegas, we were able to go fly to New York, land in New York, go from New York to Vegas. I'm like, oh, that sounds a lot easier.
I just wish trips were cheaper from Nashville to Vegas, but they're not.
Yeah, Nashville is one of those airports that doesn't get the break.
Yeah, I mean, I looked. It costs $475 round trip.
I do know I was looking into going to Dragon Con from Texas, and it's half the price from Vegas as it is from Texas, and we're halfway there. So it's cheaper for me to go back to Vegas and then fly to Atlanta and then go back than it is to fly from Texas to Atlanta. Doesn't make any sense.
Doing Dragon Con, I will actually come down and help you guys with that one.
Dragon Con blast.
Yeah, this Dragon Con we're looking at going just to have some business meetings. We don't have a booth set up or anything. If I knew it was this far away from Gen Con this year, I probably would have done a booth, but usually it's like right after you can't do it.
Well, Gen Con had weird times this year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird one. It was like
there was the past few years. I actually was speaking with one of the higher ups at Gen Con. I randomly read into the person. They explained their scheduling for the last few years, and like this year they had to do it now, or they would do it like the week before Dragon Con, and they were like they didn't want to do that to Dragon Con, so they had to do it so early because of they have a gymnastics nationals event was in Indianapolis this year. It's happening this week. And that would have been like that was the big pushback. I was like, well, we're gonna do because of this event, we'll just do it earlier, and then like the next year, it's like the first week of August, and then it's back to its regular slot, and then the last scheduled one out is like gonna be in that middle August slot again now.
Okay, so
we're gonna be back to normal soon. It's just not there yet.
We got some more questions. Jason, we'll give the first one to you. Will Mega Man Set 3 be able to debut by the end of this year?
It's confirmed that everything is designed and laid out for all the text. The packaging's all done. So right now it just depends on if manufacturing can get it in that quickly. But I know that there's a mini set slotted before Mega Man. So it depends on when that comes out. It's a surprise that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, okay. So there is something.
Whoa, something that's so far in production we don't know about. Ooh.
A guarantee for this year, I believe. I guess I shouldn't say guarantee. Tim doesn't like stuff like that.
You want to? You're hoping to get it out before Worlds? Is maybe that before that?
It should definitely be out before Worlds because the artwork is supposed to be done by November, which means it can go into production then for the mini set. And we'll have it late November probably. And then Mega Man Set 3 is done right now, and it'll be going off to print in the next week probably.
Oh, that means that my PCC may be
It's going alongside Blood Omen, which is also finished, and so those two will be produced at the same time.
See,
and then
these are the things we wanted.
Yeah, the next two sets after Blood Omen. Actually, Blood Omen probably won't come out in that order, but it's being printed because it's already done.
Yeah.
Street Fighter is supposed to come out around the same time as the Street Fighter V video game release.
Which is March 31st, so that means that puts you in maybe
a
2-week variance.
It's probably going to be early April.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-week variance. What was the other thing? Well, that mini set actually comes out if everything works out. I mean, that mini set's available for my PTC.
Possibly.
Possibly in the first 2 weeks of December. All right, Ryan, they want to know and I don't know if this is one for you or not, but health to hand size ratio. How did it come about? Because the guy that's asking is a 5-hand size enthusiast.
What does that mean? 5-hand size enthusiast. You just
He
He
only
plays
likes,
nothing but hand size.
he
5-hand
likes
sizes.
tanks.
So in my original design for the game, that was how, and I believe that's how they continue to balance the fighter cards, the character cards, is by dinging you for life and for hand size. I actually that's one of the things I wish I hadn't done with UFS was using hand size as a number. It's a very dangerous number to play with because card games. It turns out that in card games, cards are the main resource of the game, right? So those of you that can draw lots of cards will have an inherent advantage. And so getting that sweet spot of like, well, how much health does an extra card cost and all that other stuff is actually pretty tough. Because the cost of that changes depending on where you are on the scale. It's not like a 1-to-1 scale, right? So these days when I'm doing other games, I tend to shy away from using hand size as a cost because of that, right? I remember playing. When I was at Wizards, I was trying to bring back. I had this idea to bring back some of the old Vanguard stuff that Magic had done.
Yeah, love those.
That was a lot of fun, and so I had this idea. I came up with this idea, and I kind of pitched it to some of the Magic team, including Mark Globus, who's one of the producers of Magic. And I'll never forget what the first thing he said when he saw my offering. He said, "Well, which one gives me the most cards? Because that's all I care about." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, right." So it's a tough one. I think personally, like if I could go back, I probably would just use life as the balancer for abilities on fighter cards. Having said that, I don't think it puts the game in a bad place. I think it's more of a finesse choice than anything else. Obviously, the game's been around for a long time, so it's clearly not a deal breaker. But it was something that when I designed the game, I didn't have full understanding of when I did it. So it seemed like a natural thing. Like, oh yeah, you have some fighters that start with a ton of cards in their hands, and some that don't, and some that have a ton of health, and some that don't. And those two knobs in combination with each other can get pretty squirrely pretty fast. So.
It is hard to balance.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, Hugo is the trademark of when it's hard to balance.
You want to make the just biggest giant character in the game, and I actually want to. There's I'm hoping when we get Dave Freeman, I remember there being a story behind the original promo Hugo, and I want him to tell about it because they didn't expect him to be as good, but he just became better because more cards came out. He was one of those characters.
That's always a danger. It's always a danger. Whenever one thing we look for when we design new cards is, does this limit our future design space? Right? Like,
there's a few characters like that in UFS right now. My favorite character actually has that same system. Is he makes any 4-diff attack that's not powerful throw on his symbols, and that's like his whole thing. And it's like we always call everything every time we see a card that falls into his system. It's like they passed the Raiden test, and you can see it's like a thing to it. It's always amusing to me. It's like kind of the same idea with Hugo was.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I think it may or may not be common knowledge, or probably is, but we just don't get. We play test games as much as we can, but not nearly as much as you guys will, right, when they come out.
Oh, yeah.
So we do our best with the time and resources we have, but oftentimes...
Matt and I were playtesters during the Sabretooth days.
Oh, cool.
And like, we never... There was things that, like, we could catch some things on, like, we would playtest a little bit, and we were, like, going through cards. I'm like, okay, this seems all right. And then we'd actually build... We maybe build... maybe 2 decks in a cycle, 2 or 3 decks in a whole cycle. Like we just didn't have enough time to build like the aggressiveness. We're doing it for product payout at the end. It was really tough back then. So we're doing what we could, and we would do tests. And we like there would be cards that got through way too often, and then there would be cards that like we stopped immediately. We're like, this card is too broken. If it gets to print, we're gonna have a problem. And sometimes they listened, sometimes they didn't.
I think there's. I would rather live in a world where we ride that line of excitement and brokenness than where we play it safe, right? So that's the game we have to play as designers. Is we ought to go up to the line because balance isn't one. There's no border of balance where like a card up here is imbalanced and a card down here is super balanced. It's a strata, right? There's a whole range there, and so
isn't that like the?
I would rather make exciting cards and occasionally come out with a few cards that tweak the field in a way that we didn't expect, than play it totally safe and have a dull game, right?
Isn't that like the way they gave me the best way as I have like a little bit of design ideas myself, and people always tell me, especially with card games, there's the two main design systems that everybody always talks about. There's the power creep system, where you just keep making better and better cards, and eventually everything's so broken you have to kind of like find a reset point. And then there's the magic system, whereas you play with it, you build within the spectrum, and some of them are like you design your sets from a draft perspective, from a perspective of formats, for like there's like I remember this whole explanation of like, and then eventually once in a while you get a few cards at that high end of the spectrum, they get a lot of play, and that's just what they are. And then there's that ones in the middle ground, they have their niche play, and like you gotta play within the spectrum and just not try to power creep.
Well, and one thing that I think, at least when I've talked to players about balance, I think there's a misconception that balance is our goal. That absolute balance is the gold standard, right? And it not only is that impossible to do, really, when you think about all the nuances of what a card can do in a game, right? It's just impossible to have that. But it's also pretty boring, right? That makes a pretty boring game, I think, if every card is perfectly balanced. The other thing is it makes deck building really, really hard, right? When every card is as good as every other card, oh man, I don't want to make that. The decision trees for deck building explode. You just know,
Yep.
So I think a big part of deck building and a big part of learning a game and growing in skill is growing that capability of evaluating cards when you read them and understanding what is good and what is bad. And that's an important process for any card game. You have to have that skill testing moment for a player, because once a player feels like they've gotten better at the game, they're much more likely to stick around and be a part of the community and be a player that contributes, right? So that's an important part of it. So people, would sometimes, when I was at Wizards, one of the questions I get was like, why does Wizards design bad cards? And my answer was always, well, we don't design bad cards. We design cards that may or may not be for you, right?
Yeah.
I heard that line before.
And it's not a line. It's absolutely true. I mean, not every card in every set is for every player, right? You just can't do that, right? Some cards are for new players. Some cards are for older players. Some cards are for vintage players. Some cards are for Tommies and Johnnies and Spikes and all that other stuff. So there's a whole range of reason why a card is a card, and it does what it does. People don't often want to hear, though, that it's not for them, because it's why did you make it for me?
Yeah.
What?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're at 10. We're coming up on 10:15 Eastern time. I think we've gotten some great information today from everyone. Ryan, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was great to get some from a designer insight on the game, where it's come, where it started, to get those stories from you. That's great. Jason, thanks for coming on, and love the announcements. We'll be making those official posting notes on the Facebook page in probably off next 5 minutes. Just so they're out there in the world on print somewhere.
Nice.
There's something coming. We don't know when. We don't know what it is, but it's coming.
All right, so speculation start, people. Go.
Yeah.
Take to the posts.
I'm pretty sure nobody's going to be able to guess.
Oh, you just made it worse, Jason. You just made it worse.
We already know it's My Little Pony.
Jason, you're talking. Just remember, we figure out a lot. We'll eventually figure things out.
I'm not going to try.
Okay, then it's my turn to figure it out.
I do want to say,
skills of Dynamite.
I did want to say thanks for having me on your 100th episode, and also thank you guys. Thank you to the UFS community who's kept this game alive. Thank you to Jason and Jasko for bringing it back from the dead. And thank you to players who enjoy the game and tell their friends about it and have a good time with other UFS players. It really means a lot to us on this side of the industry line to see people enjoying something that we've worked so hard on, that we've put so much effort into, to see them having a good time. To me, that it doesn't get much better than that. So thank you guys for what you do for the community.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll make this game go for another 10 more years.
Love it. Love it.
All right, everybody. We don't have what announcement? St. Louis.
Yep.
There's
St. Louis coming up.
St. Louis
What?
PTC this weekend or next weekend, the 29th.
Yep.
Go sign up
Michigan.
and pre-order your tickets if you already haven't.
Yep.
Michigan PTC at the end of September. Poughkeepsie PTC at the October 24th, which is also the start of this year's Empire Circuit. And then the Rochester CCG 2K event on November 7th.
Yep.
And I am talking to my store manager this weekend. I will have a date for the National PTC confirmed this weekend.
Good, Joe. Good job.
He went on a nature hike last week. I couldn't talk to him. It's like, Joe, I gotta go commune with nature. It's like, I got a Ryu deck here. Commune with nature through the paper pulp of this cardboard card game. It was once a tree, now fight.
Alright.
I should have never built in that deck. That thing is a monstrously quick.
All right, everybody. Hope everybody has a good night. Thank you for joining us for our 100th episode.
Hopefully we'll be here for another 100 more.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Night.